The world remembers the warplanes that carved their names into history. The sleek Spitfire with its graceful wings, the brutal Messerschmitt with its sharp edges, and the massive bombers that blacken the skies with their shadows. Yet, hidden in plain sight, there was another machine, a fighter that carried nations on its back, often overlooked, often underestimated. The Hawker Hurricane. It was not the most beautiful, not the fastest, nor the most glamorous, but it was a fighter with a secret strength. It was too easy to repair. And in that very simplicity, it carried a story that echoed the struggles, resilience, and dignity of a people too often overlooked themselves. The Hurricane was built with fabric-covered fuselage and a frame that did not demand the delicate touch of perfectionist engineers. Unlike the Spitfire, which required skilled metal workers and specialized equipment, the Hurricane could be patched by the hands of ordinary mechanics. Bullets tore holes through its skin, but canvas could be stretched, riveted, and painted over in a single day. Metal plates could be hammered into place with tools no more sophisticated than what a village craftsman might hold. The Hurricane could be broken in the morning and fly again by nightfall. This resilience was its first secret, and it mirrored the story of those who have lived through centuries of hardship. For every wound inflicted, for every blow endured, there was repair, recovery, and return. Just as the Hurricane rose again and again, patched or determined, so too did those who faced injustice, yet found ways to stand tall, scarred but unbroken. The second reason was cost. The Hurricane was cheaper to build than its rivals. In a world where wars drained treasuries and demanded endless resources that mattered, the British government could afford more Hurricanes and Spitfires, and that affordability meant more chances in the sky. But beneath that statistic was another truth. Value is not always measured by beauty, but by endurance. A community may be dismissed as less elegant, less refined, less polished, but in its durability, it carries a value the world often fails to recognize until a crisis comes. Think of the men and women who worked double shifts in factories, who stitched uniforms, packed ammunition, and carried water buckets down unlit streets during the Blitz. Their hands, like the hands that mended the Hurricane, were not glamorous, but without them, the fight could not be won. In those hands lay the quiet courage of survival. And in that way, the Hurricane was not just a plane. It was a metaphor for ordinary people carrying extraordinary burdens. The third reason was accessibility. The Hurricane could be repaired in the field. Mechanics did not need specialized factories. They needed open ground, a hangar roof if lucky, and a determination to make it work. The idea that repair was possible anywhere spoke to a truth far beyond aviation. For those who carried the weight of inequality, there was no waiting for the perfect place, the perfect time, or the perfect tools. The fight for dignity was waged wherever life demanded it, on back porches, in church basements, in cotton fields, and on city streets. That portability of resilience reminds us of the courage of black servicemen who, despite serving in segregated units, kept nations alive with their labor, skill, and sacrifice. They worked in conditions where recognition was withheld, yet they repaired, built, and sustained. Like the Hurricane, their work was not glamorous but indispensable. And though history has too often placed their stories in the shadows, the truth cannot be erased. Survival and victory came because ordinary people carried the extraordinary on their shoulders. The fourth reason was design. The Hurricane was built with a structure that welcomed repair. Its wings, its panels, its very skeleton were designed with the possibility of damage in mind. It was almost as if the engineers had known from the beginning. This machine will be hurt, and it must be healed. That foresight reflects a wisdom carried through generations who prepared their children for a world that would test them. Parents who said, "You will face hardship, but you must endure." Communities that taught, "You will be wounded, but you must rise again." The design of endurance is something more profound than rivets and bolts. It is the inheritance of survival. When a grandmother teaches her granddaughter how to walk with dignity through a world that may not welcome her, that is design. When a father whispers to his son, "They may break your body, but not your spirit," that is design. Just as a Hurricane was built to survive damage, so too were those who carried their histories through storms of injustice. The fifth reason was training. Because the Hurricane was easier to repair, mechanics could be trained faster. Men and women, many with little experience, could learn the craft in weeks. The machine was forgiving. It welcomed imperfect hands and turned them into capable ones. In this truth lies another metaphor. When given access, when trusted with responsibility, people rise. Denied for so long the right to education, to training, to opportunity, black men and women still learned, adapted, and excelled wherever a door cracked open. Imagine what more could have been done if every door had stood open wide. And yet, in every corner of history, when opportunity appeared, even in fragments, the response was swift, skillful, determined. Just as a novice mechanic could learn to patch a hurricane, so too could denied student master the art of words or law or medicine, if only given the chance. The machine became a teacher, and in its openness, it reflected the truth of human potential. Talent does not belong to privilege alone. It belongs to every heart that beats with determination. Finally, the sixth reason was spirit. The hurricane was never the most famous, but it was beloved. Pilots called it steady, forgiving, trustworthy. They trusted it to bring them home. And in return, the plane carried their lives in its patched wings. In this exchange, we see the final metaphor, loyalty between those who endure together. The fighter was not glamorous, but it was faithful, and in that loyalty, pilots found comfort. Communities, too, have found strength in loyalty, in standing by each other, in carrying one another through storms, in patching the wounds of neighbors as surely as a mechanic patched canvas with fabric. This spirit of shared survival is what dignity looks like in practice. It is the strength of a people too often underestimated, yet too powerful to be erased. So the hurricane, too easy to repair, became more than just a plane. It became a symbol of survival through damage, of resilience through scars, of value beyond glamour. Its 6 reasons mirrored 6 truths carried by those who lived through the long storm of injustice. And just as history sometimes forgets the hurricane in favor of the Spitfire, history too has tried to forget those whose resilience carried nations. But the truth cannot be erased, because what flies again and again, what rises despite the wounds, what carries hope in patched wings, cannot be forgotten,